Hello and welcome to the Trending Now podcast. I'm Louie Butko. Thank you for joining us as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. and 11:30 on CHCH, CHCH.com, and our Trending Now YouTube page. Coming up on today's show, after weeks of speculation, Catherine, Princess of Wales, announces she is battling cancer and is undergoing chemotherapy. But Kensington Palace said that no details about her cancer or her treatment would be released, saying she has a right to medical privacy. Nicole Martin joins us off the top with the latest. Brackets busted as Oakland University marks day one of the men's NCAA with a huge upset over third-seeded Kentucky. Jason Gaidola stops by to give us an update on his bracket and what the fuss over U.S. college basketball is about anyway. And Kendrick Lamar made an uncredited appearance on Future and Metro Boomin's new album, We Don't Trust You, and with it delivered a series of sharp, pointed words for Drake and J. Cole. Trending Now producer Laura Sebben joins us later with all the details. But we start with this afternoon's breaking news, and it got the whole newsroom in a tizzy.
Yeah, we were all standing around watching this message from Kate Middleton live.
TMZ says at 2 o'clock something's going to happen.
Yep.
And sure enough, 2 o'clock on the dot, Kensington Palace tweets out a video. Not digitally altered, nope. We don't think.
Filmed on Wednesday in Windsor.
Okay, you've got the details. So
I got the details.
Obviously, a lot of speculation over the last few weeks. We were going to bring on here to talk about all that speculation. Yeah. But what do we know? What did we learn today?
We learned it's pretty sad news. Luckily, they caught it obviously early enough, but she had this abdominal surgery in January. Kate said that it went well, and the princess then said it was after that surgery that they discovered that she did in fact have cancer, because the palace put out a statement way earlier saying it was not cancer related, because we know King Charles has also been admitted to hospital and is undergoing cancer treatments himself. But in this situation, they said, no, it wasn't cancer. Now she's saying today it was, in fact, and she's doing preventative chemotherapy.
Very, very, very similar circumstances with the princess and the king.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the king goes in for what we are told is a prostate procedure, not cancer. And then after we find out it was cancer, it's all happens at the same time. I was thinking of like poor Prince Will. I mean, like, it's bad enough that your father, the King of England, you're next in line for the throne, has cancer. Now your wife has cancer too. The speculation around it was obviously crazy.
The hope in whatever with Princess Kate is that the surgery that she had hopefully took care of the cancer, and now it's more preventative to make sure all of the cancer cells are killed within her by doing chemotherapy. But yeah, obviously she said it's been a very, very difficult few months for her family, and they're trying to process a way to tell their children and to have them understand. But
they're such a public role, though.
They are.
Will there be an explanation as to why? Do you think there'll be an explanation as to why it took this long? Or
it did take so long, didn't it? It's just been the palace's way. They just don't provide information. They don't comment on speculation. But I think it got to a tipping point. Obviously, she mentioned Will a lot. She mentioned Prince William a number of times. I started counting. I'm like, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, okay, so the rumor about a possible divorce heading their way, that's not the situation. She's made it clear that he's been right by her side. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I mean, the whole thing on my head is just like, there's still so many questions, though, even with this video. She doesn't specify what type of cancer it is. She hasn't specified what the abdominal surgery was for. So it leaves people still wondering and guessing what's going on there.
And I used you as an example. You were very public about your health. A few months ago.
Yeah, everyone has their personal
some time off.
Yeah, I think for me personally, if I could raise any kind of awareness to women's health, I'm going to do it. Even with the tiny little platform I might have. Kate's like, whoa, right? She's got this massive platform around the world. I understand people, you have to respect privacy, but at the same time, if this has something to do with a women's health issue, it would be great to get that out there and to talk more about it, because it really is not talked about enough how many women have to go through this. Privacy,
as she would
say.
Yes. That part I watched back a couple times just to hear her say, we appreciate. I mean, my thing was like, yes, she thanked the public for their patience. We needed to sell the kids. I get it. The kids are young, trying to explain to them, you know what your grandpa has. Your grandpa has cancer. Now your mom has it too. Like, they're different, but it's they're both terrible diseases. But it's just, you need to let people know, or this rampant speculation is going to go on for months, and it has.
Think of all of the theories that have been out there. But there's still a few questions that remain unanswered here. So let me go through a couple
go for it.
that I've already seen online. The image on Mother's Day that was posted, and Kate was quick. It was on her that the photo had been edited. There was that kill notice from Reuters, from AP. Like, they didn't even put Kensington Palace on their trusted list anymore because of that. So why? Why was that altered? Could it maybe had something to do with her health state at the time, potentially? And then also that TMZ and the Sun video.
That was them? Like, that was them? Did we get confirmation?
I mean, no one said anything, but
it wasn't them?
No, exactly. No one said anything that's not them. Maybe she looks a little bit different because of everything that she's been going through.
Yeah, and she did. I mean, we said she did look a little gaunt, right? You know, and that would come to expect was just not just the physical toll. There's the picture and that we're technically not allowed to be. Why are their fingers crossed?
Because
why are their fingers crossed?
That's a common thing with AI these days too. If you look at pictures, the fingers might be crossed.
Yes, they can't do hands.
I mean, we've shown the videos where it looks like her Vogue cover, and it's just mesh right on there.
The same. Yeah, and then I've seen the comment too. It's like, oh, so we're throwing the cancer patient under the bus for the Photoshop picture. Like, it's bad enough that we're gonna blame this on the princess. If she takes responsibility.
It's worse now, knowing that she's been going through chemotherapy. She's got the time to bring up X and put out a tweet. Be like, sorry guys, I just like to edit. Like, what? You're gonna blame her?
Well, and that was the video itself too. I was wondering, did she have a prompter? Because she read that very clearly. She had her pauses. She's such an eloquent speaker. She is. She really is.
Oh yes.
Where does this leave this isn't going to calm down speculation in terms of what's going on around the royal family.
Hopefully the affair rumors will calm down, because that was apparently really hurting Kate during this time. Like, not only to have to go through cancer treatment, but to also have your marriage brought into question with that Rose Hanbury, the Marchioness of Chumley, her title. But yeah, she's also said the rumors are false. Yeah. Hopefully it puts an end to it. But again, like, there are still a lot of questions, and there's been a leak too within the hospital that was just coming out this week as well. They're looking into that someone was trying to get her medical records from the hospital. So it might continue on. What type of cancer is it? What was the surgery all about? Will she speak out on that one day? Maybe.
The original timeline was that she was going to be back to royal duties around Easter, that being next weekend, actually. This seems like that would probably put a pause on it. She might still go to church. That's always a big thing, that little walk to church that they do. It'll be interesting to see. You got to fill me in on this Nickelodeon stuff.
Yes.
So a documentary, Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. It was an investigative discovery documentary, a 4-part series. Sunday and Monday it ran. The Dan Schneider is the guy?
The producer.
The producer.
Brian Peck was the acting dialogue coach.
He went to jail.
Yes.
Yeah, and he sexually assaulted somebody on set. Drake Bell. It was unnamed in the actual criminal charges, but Drake Bell would eventually admit that it was him. We were talking about this. We both grew up on these shows. Like, you know, all that Amanda Show, like that was his bread and butter, you know, right up to like Zoe 101, right? Like, I mean, I watched Zoe 101. I'm sorry, I have to admit it. Yeah, okay.
I did too.
I was a young teenager when that came out. But so what? It is a really icky story.
Icky. It's really ruined these shows for me, and I know in the comments from our YouTube video on this story, we've had thousands of people watch it. They're disgusted too. Yeah. Like, what? You look back at some of the jokes that were written by Dan Schneider, the sexualization of young girls. Some of these girls were like 10, 11, 12. Yeah. And he thought that would be funny. These shows are for kids. They're not for adults. What's going on here? But I think the worst of the worst was this Brian Peck whole situation with Drake Bell. And he, for the first time in this documentary, is sharing that he was the John Doe. He was raped. I mean, this is graphic, but he was sodomized with a foreign object. Like, he said the worst of the worst you can imagine, and the court documents detail it. And yet, all of these Hollywood celebrities and elites go to court for sentencing. 41 letters of support for Brian Peck, pretty much saying that he must have been tempted into it. Like the victim blaming back in 2004, atrocious. Thank goodness things have changed. I hope now.
2004, he got 16 months in prison after pleading no contest. Like you said, quiet on the set. Drake Bell revealed that he was the one. It all happened on the Amanda Show. Schneider said that when Bell told him about the assault, because Schneider's speaking out.
Yes.
He didn't waste. He's not. I mean, I don't want to give him any credit here, but he did come out right away and he apologized publicly if he made anyone feel uncomfortable. Kind of passed the blame on a couple of things. There were some, two young female writers sharing one writing salary, and he's saying, "Who am I to talk about salary? You're the producer. Everything we've learned about movies, producers, TV shows, like producers are a pretty big part of that." And then
culture on set too. There was one part I couldn't even air in our story because it was just so long. There were so many things to include. But one of those female writers, she didn't even really want to talk about it. The other writer did. Dan Schneider asked her to pretend that she was being sodomized while reading out some of the script that they had written. And she did it because it was a room full of guys, and if you didn't go along with the joke, you were out.
Well, and that was the one thing in this that stood out to me, was that he was always the one laughing the hardest. Everyone else felt super uncomfortable with these jokes. There was the Jamie Lynn Spears, the something on her face, right? And so speaking of Jamie Lynn Spears, former Zoe 101 actor Alexa Nicholas, who's been a vocal critic. She slammed the comments. She said she would have preferred a private apology as opposed to the public statement. And apparently she hasn't gotten that yet, the public private apologies from Dan Schneider. So yeah, it definitely makes me feel different about these shows that we watched as kids, for sure.
It does. And that speaks volumes too, if he's just doing a public apology. Really? You're not going to go and...
Speaking of public apologies, we probably won't hear one from Candace Owens, who was unceremoniously dumped from the Daily Wire. That's what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Wire,
Ben Shapiro. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Co-founded it.
It's his thing. I can honestly say I have never watched a second of the Daily Wire. But she's an interesting character because even at like early Trump days, she was a left-wing, like she had this website that attacked Trump, and then she found a niche.
She did.
And she's a good talker. She's quick on her feet. She's witty. And she's made a business of kind of going the other way.
Yeah, she says she's unapologetically Candace Owens. That's who she is. It's so interesting with the situation because Ben Shapiro is Jewish.
Yeah.
He's been very pro-Israel with the Israel-Hamas war that's been ongoing, and this has really been the feud since October 7th, since the Hamas attack. Yeah. Candace Owens, and you'll hear tonight in our story, she really details in her own podcast that she feels for the Israelis that were killed that day. She feels for the Palestinians that are being murdered daily in Gaza. She's like, but I can't have that opinion. You've got to be more one-sided. You have to be pro-Israel.
On the Daily Wire.
I mean, she has said, in my opinion, some anti-Semitic things too. She's been very supportive of Kanye West, or Ye, and his anti-Semitic comments that he has made in the past. So is she innocent in all of this? No. But it's really interesting to see someone who's been, like Ben Shapiro, who's been very vocal on cancel culture, essentially cancel another far-right pundit. Like,
I mean, it's what we talked about last week. And we had the full Elon Musk, Don Lemon interview. We had the preview last week. You and I were sitting here. Same idea, right? I mean, you're going to champion free speech. You're going to say, and then you're so triggered, so sensitive when it's something against you. And that,
not on my platform, though. Do it somewhere else.
And it was interesting to see Alex Jones, speaking of these right-wing figures, declaring Israel's actions mass genocide, right? In strong language, which I think some people on the left would agree with him on this, which I don't think happens very often with Alex Jones, but he's on Twitter.
You are finding that more and more. The further right, it's very people who are also anti-Israel as well. There really is that, what you're seeing online. I feel like I'm inundated on X. As soon as you cover a story like this, your feed is just bombarded.
That's why I can't stand that For You page. And when it gets over and you're like, how did it get on this again?
I'm like, it's not actually for me, though. It's for work.
Really appreciate you making the time. I know you're working on the Candace Owens story, so we'll look forward to your story tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, my thanks to Nicole Martin for joining me. Still ahead, Laura Sebben will be by, and coming up in just a little bit. We're talking March Madness with Jason Gaidola. But I wanted to get to this story. Trending news out of Russia, where President Vladimir Putin is claiming a landslide victory this week after a stage-managed election with no real competition and widespread reports of manipulated results. Now, while Russia's allies celebrate the win, others are concerned about what comes next, particularly for the invasion of Ukraine. Now, after securing a new 6-year term, Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke at an open-air concert to mark the 10th anniversary of Russia's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. Now, addressing the massive crowd, he said, quote, "In the end, we did it. It is a big event in the history of our country." Now, it's a glimpse at what Putin says his win represents, a desire for internal consolidation that will allow Russia to act effectively, at the front line. Now, after a 3-day election that saw millions of people head to the polls, Putin won with 87.28% of the vote. But experts say the conclusion was always foregone with widespread reports of ballot stuffing. Now, Putin is 71 years old and is entering his 5th term as Russia's president, a position he could hold until at least 2030. And if he sees it through to the end, Putin will surpass Joseph Stalin's 29-year reign and become Russia's longest-serving leader since Catherine the Great. Putin reelected. Who saw that coming, Jason Gaidola? Just like number 14.
I can't. I mean, what are the odds?
What are the odds? I was the underdog was paying good money, so I almost bet on the underdog on who was going against Putin.
Well, you can never count out a KGB, coup or some sort of espionage. Don't rule it out. I don't know.
It's just, it really is unfortunate what's going on in Russia, and yeah, obviously Ukraine is feeling this. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky met with U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, by the way, this week about the future of aid efforts, with Graham warning the needs of Americans come first. No surprise there. Wanted to talk to you about March Madness.
Yes.
How's your bracket holding up?
Oh, it's busted.
Is it?
It's
Did you have Kentucky?
I took Kentucky. I took. Listen, I know there's some extracurricular activities involved in this whole thing, but believe it or not, though, it's prompted me to actually, get to know the teams. Yeah. Going into the season, you
were betting on, I don't want to. Sorry, I'm not throwing you under the bus here. But you've been watching these games because you've been throwing a couple bucks down on these teams. Like, you've been following them.
Well, again, you can't.
And
can't
it
watch
still
all
hasn't
of
helping you.
It still hasn't helped because and again, this is why they call it madness, because it's college basketball, right? These games are neutral sites. They're shorter than NBA games. Possessions are longer, so mistakes happen, but they're hard to recover from, especially when you see less runs like you do in the NBA, and there's just way more half-court action going on, and the crowd, the pressure, the free throw missing it's all that consideration is what makes this so unique to watch, right? And from a basketball point of view, I always prefer to watch this over the NBA. Yeah. Just because you see a little more diversity of play. Yeah. Even though they all still technically shoot the 3-ball. Yeah. But it's been fun. It's not been good, but it's been fun.
Like that Oakland guy who hit the 10 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Apparently he has only shot a 2-point. He's only gone for a 2-point attempt shot. So within 5 times this season. All year. He just shoots from 3, and it paid off for him last night. Kentucky, obviously, they're really struggling. John Calipari's squad, they haven't gotten out of the first weekend since 2019. They didn't even make the dance in 2021. John Calipari's got something going on there in Kentucky. Kentucky used to be the dominant school. Standard. People were coming out. The guys who were coming out of Kentucky, AD, all those guys were just so good. And now it's a crapshoot, basically.
It's a crapshoot, and I've watched Kentucky play, my God, especially in this tournament, if you cannot play defense, and they cannot play defense, it is like their defensive unit as a whole is really bad. If you can't play defense, you're not going to make it through this tournament. It's just been proven, and sure, they were actually fun to watch this year. But in terms of playing winning basketball, that program is not even. It's not even close to where it used to be.
Is UConn going to win again?
It looks like it. I mean, I like Auburn. I think Auburn if you look at their efficiency stats, and I mean that's probably the best indicator, but they're a gutsy team. They played really well and leading up to the tournament, and I think they got something there. But I mean, UConn is obviously a team too. You can't. I mean, out of all the heavy favorites, UConn is probably the one I'd feel most comfortable with. Yeah. I don't know about Houston. Sometimes they don't score as much, but they can defend. But who knows? Again, it's
crapshoot.
It's funny how like when you watch a game and it's like, what is going on?
It's the momentum swings, like you say.
Yeah.
It's there's anything like sometimes in NBA game, like rarely in NBA games, it does have that feel where usually it's the playoffs, right? Where the crowd is nuts.
Yep.
And players are riding that hot hand, right? And the momentum, the crowd behind them. I've been to the games were in Buffalo. The first round games were in Buffalo. Like not the last time it was in Buffalo, but the time before that. Right. So it was like 10, 15 years ago. It was like Penn State versus somebody. And it was just like craziness. What do you think it is about March Madness that just like, is it the gambling? Is it the brackets? Is it like, what is it about this that people seem to go crazy for?
I think it's the office pool culture. I guess I can call it a culture. I know it gets overused a lot. That definitely plays a big role. Seeing so many different schools. It's the variety, the diversity of like, a no-name school from a very poor conference is playing, a team that always makes the tournament, and then it's just that one game. It's that one shot. It's the buzzer beaters. I think that's what draws it in. And obviously the gambling draws it in too as well. But if you watch, even with the crowd, the energy, like this is just college sports in the States, period, is the alumni, the students, they all fly out to these that's why they hold them in stadiums. Yeah. Some of the later stages, right?
Yeah,
Final Four. It's always in a big NFL stadium.
Indianapolis, Colts Stadium. It's been like
it's just that's just been the history, and you're able to jam. You're just able to jam pack like so many different fans to go to watch this, and I don't know. There's more of a tribal. There's just more of a tribal wave of support when it comes to college sports, and it carries over to this.
And, Bubba and I were talking about this. I was on Sportsline this week, right, and we were talking about U Sports, and them not getting the coverage. Obviously, TSN is dedicating days and days and weeks of coverage to March Madness. Can't tell you the last time they played a U Sports game, right?
Yeah.
I said at the time that U Sports has a responsibility to play in this too. They need the schools to celebrate these sports teams because they don't do it like they do in the States. They try to get people out. Shout out to all the booster groups that try to get their fans out. But there isn't that same culture of sports in this country at the collegiate level at all.
And it goes back to a point I said with Bubba, and this is the fundamental difference between Canadians and Americans is that the Americans they have a belief system. They support amateur sports through and through. Like it's all about their alma mater. They're going to support their alma mater, not even well after they're gone. I was just in Boston last weekend. Met some lovely people from Alabama, big Auburn fans. Ironically, Auburn, but then that's
why you're picking Auburn.
No, I was already picking them even before then. But I said, credit to Americans, but you guys just support amateur sports. It doesn't really matter. It's not quite elitist, I would say, but it's of us. Maybe it is. I don't know. Canadians they're actually just fickle sports fans.
Yeah.
And I think that's carrying over even to professional sports. I don't think hockey is as popular in this country as some may think, right? I think it's just you're seeing it all across the board. And when it comes back to supporting youth sports, it's hard, even here in Hamilton. Sometimes it is hard to sell something that is not. If it's not the very best, everyone's just kind of like, they just mumble about it and just make a big stink.
It's funny you brought up. We brought up U Sports because I came across a picture of you and I at the University of Western game.
Yes, I do remember that.
Western, that was that we were both there cheering on Western at the time. You were in Boston.
I was
for St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
How was that?
It was a great time, and highly recommend.
It this week?
No, actually, it's just I picked up a little bit of the flu here, but I'm just trying to get my voice back now. But I feel better now. But it just other than that, it's a city I definitely recommend to go. Obviously, it's a great sports town. Restaurants are fantastic. A lot of history, if you like a history, American Revolution type stuff. Go to Boston. It's probably it's one of the nicer. And the weather, if the weather's good there too, it's just awesome to get out by the sea.
You flew?
I flew there. Yeah.
Nice. Out of Billy Bishop?
Billy Bishop. Oh, gotta love Billy Bishop.
Porter?
Porter.
Free plug for Porter. If you want to sponsor the show or get us something. I know you're working on the story. You're on the Queen story or the Princess story today. Your thoughts, real quick.
I mean, it's sadly, it's like, okay. I mean, it all made sense in the end, regardless of the the conspiracies of like, what's her health like, or is the family okay, and all that yada yada stuff. But I mean, it's sad. But from what I saw, I mean, what I gained from the video, she appeared to be pretty optimistic. Yeah. That's just my impression.
All right. Well, we'll be looking for your story. Thanks for doing this, Jason.
Thank you.
All right. My thanks to Jason Gaidola for joining me. Still had Laura Sebben going to be by to talk about the latest Kendrick Lamar beef going after J. Cole and Drake. And we'll also get into a little F1 as well. But sticking with the sports theme, sad news in the world of hockey this week as former NHL enforcer Chris Simon has died at the age of 52, with his family confirming that he died by suicide on Monday night in his hometown of Wawa, Ontario. In a statement shared with ESPN, his family says they are grieving with the loss of our son, brother, father, partner, teammate, and friend. Simon inspired many First Nations hockey players across Canada, and he's remembered by teammates and fans as a dominant force on the ice, playing for 15 years and taking home the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche in 1996. He fought more than 100 times throughout his career, and his family believes CTE is to blame for his death, saying they witnessed firsthand that Chris struggled immensely with it. Now, CTE is a term we've heard a lot in sports recently. It's a degenerative brain disorder caused by repeated head trauma, but can only be confirmed after death. Now, the condition has only recently been taken seriously in the sports community, especially as research emerges showing hockey enforcers die 10 years younger on average than fellow players. Now, the league has gotten stricter on some penalties in the decades since Simon took to the ice, it still isn't willing to acknowledge a link between hockey and CTE. Gary Bettman, NHL commissioner, said this, quote, "Chris's passing is tragic. It's sad. We extend our deepest condolences to his family and friends. On all these matters, we wait to see what the medical experts are telling us. However, I think it's well documented all the progress we've made over the past decades to make the game as safe as possible." Pretty disgusting for Gary Bettman to put that in the same sentence, offering their condolences while also denying that fighting in hockey is playing a role. And of course, fighting in hockey is back, Laura Sebben. I'm not sure if you noticed, but this Matt Rempe guy, it was weird that night. The Leafs were playing, and Ryan Reeves got in a fight, and I texted my buddy, and I said, "Oh, what a fight!" Yeah. And then it was just like, oh wait, like Ryan Reeves, they showed his career stats of fighting. He's fought 150 times. Like, I don't know. It's unfortunate. Concussion. The movie Concussion came out 10 years ago with Will Smith.
So long ago,
right? And that was kind of the it's tough. And like Jason and I were just talking about like sports in general, like where they're going and the popularity of sports, like things like that really put a damper on it.
They do, and I think everybody who follows the NHL knows Gary Bettman is a bum, but I think it's like the NFL has taken responsibility and been like, yeah, we know CTE is a thing. We're working with doctors and working with our players and working with our teams, trying to make things as safe as possible in a high contact sport. And as much as people want to say it isn't, like hockey is a high contact sport. And like you said, fights sometimes are a part of it. It's part of the entertainment. It's part of the machoism on the ice. So for Gary Bettman to act like head injuries aren't a concern in hockey is just a little bit silly.
Speaking of silly, I love rap beefs because like I don't know if they're real. Like, are they real?
Sometimes.
Like some people. Sometimes. I mean, like who went to jail for shooting Tory Lanez? Isn't he Tony Lanez? What's the guy? Tory.
He went to jail. Yeah, he shot Megan Thee Stallion in the foot. I don't know if that was a beef. That was just him being reckless.
He's Canadian, by the way. I didn't know that.
Oh, I know.
Didn't know.
And
that.
him and Drake had a beef for the longest time, but they squashed it.
Okay, so what's the deal? Kendrick Lamar is spitting verses at Drake and J. Cole. Okay, what he said?
yeah, it's just very obvious that it's about the two of them. He mentions their song First Person Shooter. He mentions For All the Dogs at one point, which is Drake's newest album. He mentions a line that J. Cole said where he called himself, Kendrick, and Drake like the big three. And he's like, there's no big three, it's just big me. And then he also mentions Drake in First Person Shooter as well in that song. Compared himself to Michael Jackson because he broke his record for like most number ones, and Kendrick Lamar says Prince outlived Mike Jack, like being like. So the beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar has been going on forever.
Yeah.
Or not forever, but for at least 10 plus years now.
Really?
But J. Cole and Kendrick have always kind of been like side by side, and they've collabed and they've done stuff together, so that was new. And then his verse where he disses them is on Future and Metro Boomin's brand new album. And Metro Boomin and Future have collaborated with Drake so much. Like Drake and Future released a whole joint album together back in 2013.
So how people were like,
no, so people were like, are they beefing Drake now? Like, what's the tea?
Metro Boomin. I've never heard that name before.
He's a producer. You've heard him on all the songs. It's like Metro Boomin wants some more. Like before the song starts, it's his producer tag.
DJ Khaled.
Well, not that one, but yeah, the Metro Boomin.
Okay, I've never heard.
There's no way you haven't.
Honestly,
on so
I'm
many
looking
songs.
at these. I'm like, congratulations, Post Malone, Bad and Bougie. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe, but these are like 2016, 2014. Okay,
Well,
I honestly.
Anyways,
I'm gonna accept.
He's a producer, and he used to just produce the songs, and then you'd hear his producer tag, Metro Boomin wants some more, and then, or I think that's what it says, unclear. But then he started actually releasing the albums. He doesn't sing on them or anything. He's still just producing them, but he started releasing the albums under his name alongside whatever artist he's using to front the songs.
Okay.
And I think his most recent one that he did last year, he got nominated for Grammys for it this past.
He was nominated for. He's nominated for a Juno Award as well for International Album of the Year for Heroes and Villains.
That's the one.
He also did Metro Boomin presents Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse soundtrack from and inspired by the motion picture.
There it is.
There it is. Okay. I mean, I didn't know that. I wanted to get to this F1 stuff because it's pretty interesting. First of all, it's not a car. It's a chassis. A chassis? Is that what they call them?
Chassis? I don't know.
But they're saying
I just call them cars. But they're not referring to them like that.
They have like a technical term, and they're just like, oh, like we didn't bring a third chassis, and so we can't race. So that's the Williams team. So what's going on with the Williams team?
So yesterday in practice, Williams driver Alex Albon, he lost control of his car, smashed into the wall, ricocheted off the wall, hit the other wall, completely totaled his car. They were trying to figure out if it was usable again and then realized it wasn't. And so then instead of it just being like, well, you totaled your car, you're out of the race, tough luck, they went to their other driver, Logan Sargent, and basically were like, Alex is going to race your car, so snooze, you lose, you're not participating in the Australian Grand Prix.
And he is the only American on the F1 roster basically right now. Like I said, they didn't bring a third car. There was a week between, and this is what they say, like with all these races from Saudi Arabia, yes, you had a week to get from Saudi Arabia to Australia, but still, I mean, the amount of travel that these people are doing with these cars, with these crews, it is pretty incredible, this F1
and
season.
And not every team has the same resources of the other ones. So Williams is never going to have the money and the manpower and the gear same as Mercedes or Ferrari. So yeah, I guess the hope is just don't total the car because cars do get damaged in practice and qualifying, and oftentimes they're able to fix them, obviously within FIA guidelines. But yeah, the car was totaled. They couldn't do anything about it. And yeah, people are a little bit like ticked off that they are punishing Logan for something that he didn't do. But Williams' justification was the midfield right now is so tight and we need all the points we can get. And unfortunately, looking at track record, Albon performs better than Logan does. So.
I mean, 27 points last year to Logan's 2 points.
Yeah.
Neither of them have a point yet this season. And it's interesting. Alex Albon, there is some rumor that maybe he could be the one to take Lewis Hamilton's spot on Mercedes.
Was there that rumor? I thought they were going to boot Checo for him on Red Bull, which would be dumb because Albon already had a chance on Red Bull and failed. So I don't know why you bring him back.
Speaking of Red Bull, Max Verstappen. We going to be cheering him on this weekend?
No comment.
Lewis Hamilton didn't like the track today. He thought it was a bit messy.
I love Lewis.
I know you do. He's done a lot this week, though, speaking out on very prominent issues, calling for a ceasefire, supporting trans rights. Like that's what he does. I mean, he's
because Lewis is actually a good person.
So Verstappen's
genuinely
Verstappen's not a good person.
Verstappen wouldn't.
He's got a stage dad.
Verstappen wouldn't even take a knee when Lewis was trying to get the other drivers to take a knee during the Black Lives Matter. He was like, "No, it's a distraction for the races."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wow, your privilege is showing, buddy." Anyways, no, but Lewis right now. I know Lewis loves Formula One, but I think his love for his activities outside of Formula One is like a 50-50 with it right now. He really, and because that was the rumor that was what got him to Ferrari, is that Mercedes didn't want to support his charity that he has going, and Ferrari was like, yeah, sure, if you want to put some money into that, we will support you, and that was the part of the catalyst for him leaving.
Well, and I don't think he's catching Max Verstappen.
No.
I don't think anyone's catching Red Bull, just by the way Red Bull's got money and the way they're building their cars.
Yeah.
They're building drones that go twice as fast as their cars now, too,
I know,
right?
it's wild.
They want to use them. Big plans for the weekend?
Actually, no. It's like a very rare weekend.
Wow.
But because the Australian Grand Prix is at midnight our time, so technically midnight Sunday, but most people view that as Saturday.
Okay, yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? I think I might just party it up and watch Formula One so I don't get tired. I think that's my plan for the weekend. What about you?
I am going to the Craft Beer and Taco Fest.
That sounds great.
At the Scotiabank Convention Center in Niagara Falls.
That sounds awesome.
I also have a fantasy baseball draft with my dad. We've been doing it for, it's a league that I've been in with my dad for 20 years now, probably. How old am I? 32. So yeah, 20 years. So it's been a while, but
That's cute.
yeah. So we're gonna do that on Saturday. Usually it's like the one day a year where we hang out. So I'm really looking
go
forward
to baseball games together?
No, we don't. We just go do the baseball draft together. So I'm looking forward to that. So. Yeah. All right. Thanks for doing this.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
All right. My thanks to Laura Sebben for joining me today. My thanks to you as well, because we could not do the show without your support. My thanks to Mike Corsten for directing today's show, and everybody else in the studio in the control room, for all their hard work for getting this show on the air. I really do appreciate it. One more time, thank you for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe to our Trending Now social media channels, including on X, YouTube, and TikTok. And while you're busy subscribing and liking, make sure you subscribe to CHCH Podcast, where you can catch a brand new episode of this show and all the other great shows we have for you, including Sportsline with Bubba O'Neill, which you catch every Tuesday to Friday on CHCH Podcast. One more time, thank you for joining us. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louie Butko. Have a great weekend.